to order. This is our September 3rd, 2024, local board of finance meeting. We can call the meeting to order with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So that, just to give everyone an update, probably the first time you've ever seen us have a local board of finance meeting per Indiana code. We are required, if we have investments, county investments of public funds, to have a local board of finance. To some extent, we've had it. We haven't properly done it, I guess, in my opinion, or per Indiana code. It's not my opinion. Since I've been a commissioner, all of our meetings are supposed to be independent of other meetings. Are supposed to be posted and had offered to the public, or public's allowed to attend. No different than any other open door policy meeting. So with that said, and I don't know that it's right by me leading it or not right, because the way the IC code reads, you have to have a meeting no sooner than the second day of January, or by the 30th day of January of a new year. At that meeting, you're supposed to elect the officers of the local board of finance. Those officers are the president and secretary. So at this time, I guess what I'd like for us to do is go ahead and take a vote for those two officers rather, positions.
Well, if you're looking for nominations, I'll go ahead and nominate you for,
So your motions,
I'll make a motion, nominate you for the president of the finance board, and Gail as the secretary.
do we want to do them one at a time, or?
Well, I mean,
I don't have,
I think we can do them both times.
Sake of time. I said for sake of time, maybe do them both.
Yeah, that's my motion. You,
Yeah, I second that.
So I got a motion by Randy, a second by Jerry to make Jamie the president and Gail the secretary. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. I think you're a voting member.
Oh,
Well, you know, opposed.
yes, yes, I am. Okay, I am a voting
I mean,
member.
if
Sorry
you're
about
the
that.
secretary, maybe not.
I sat in on so many meetings where I didn't get to vote, so.
So that takes care of that. And one thing I think is important to note in this meeting as well is that, you know, although we have had investments the last few years, not nearly to the extent or of the significance that we currently have in terms of the funds generated by those investments. Because I don't think it's any secret that in the last 3, 4, 5 years, interest rates been down. We've historically invested with local banks for the most part. I'll just put it that way. So we're getting less than 0.5% interest in most cases prior to 2020, maybe actually 2024, late 23 maybe.
In 23, we had investments, and then this year, of course. Actually, it started very late in 22, but not much. I
So-
mean, very late.
So the significance of it's obviously today and going forward is much greater than it was historically. Not to downplay or discount the importance of it prior to now, but I do think that the amount of investment income that the county's receiving was considerably less than what it is today.
The opportunities simply weren't there.
Right. And I think, I mean, it's no secret. We all know Trust Indiana has been a huge part of that, of that. So with that said, one of the things that I'd like to table as our first item of discussion is, not table, floor, as our first item as discussion is, back in June, we took investment income of 420 some thousand and applied it to the general fund. Again, the reason that happened was because we had never met as a board and didn't have a policy. By Indiana rule, you have to apply it somewhere if you don't have a policy. So it was automatically invested into the general fund.
Jamie, you can't put it anyplace else. The public funds money is where it came from. We have an account that's index or public funds money. And all interest off of that goes into the general fund. This very same interest was generated by money I took out of that account, that checking account with the bank. So by virtue of where I got the money, it went back into the general fund simply by policy. Now, once it's in the general fund, you probably could move it, but I don't think you could deposit it at someplace else.
So I disagree, and only because I did talk to the State Board of Accounts. And the State Board of Accounts told me, if you have a policy, then you do not have to put that income into the general fund. If your policy says to reinvest it, then it can be reinvested.
Well, it was
That's not
reinvested.
clear.
I didn't want you to think we weren't earning any money on it. I turned around and put it back in because we had so much money in the general fund.
So then that, for me, leaves a little bit of confusion, because when we was creating the, budget for next year, I was told it was carrying forward funds, again, because it was revenue that was not anticipated. So it was increased revenue for 2024, and was used as available revenue for 2025,
It's true.
which is what created the situation where we came in under tax levy on the initial submission of the budget.
Right.
So I'm a little bit confused. If it's coming back out, then she can't use it as carryover funds. If it's coming back out and being reinvested, then can it be used as carryover funds?
Yes, actually, the entire time the money has been,
Carry forward, I guess.
I knew what you meant. The entire time the money has been earning interest, I let the interest sit there earning interest on interest, which is logical, because at one point we were earning enough money on the interest alone to pay a salary. And this is one of those things where I held on to it for a while and really probably should have booked it, the interest, in December. And the only way to actually book it is to withdraw it from the account. That puts it in the general fund as a quietus or a receipt, just like the interest that we receive every single month from, on our checking accounts. We receipt that into the general fund. In certain cases, some goes into casino revenue, but that money then becomes available to spend. If we have enough in that fund, we can still invest the money. It's a little more complicated than I'm going to be able to explain in a few words, but basically, when you can't spend the money until it hits the general fund. Even though you've got it sitting in your checking account, it's not available to spend until it hits the general fund, because that makes it true income. That's recognizing the income that you have.
So I'm of the opinion, and when I say I talked to the State Board of Accounts, Stacy Burns is who I
Okay, I
who
didn't know.
spoke to.
Okay,
I think she's a director or something to that effect.
okay.
She's new. She's one of the new.
I know,
Sure.
She's
yeah,
one of the new ones.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
There was Stacy Burns and Lori Rogers, maybe.
Lori Rogers, yeah, she's probably your boss.
She's retired.
Is she retired?
But anyway, that was the direction she gave me. From my perspective, if we have the ability to make sure that it never goes into a spendable account, then that's what I would like to see us do, because I don't see why we should be funding our operations with interest income that should be used to secure the future operations of our county if it's needed. Meaning, if, and I'm just gonna go on a little bit of spiel right here. So if all of us as commissioners and council people over the last 20 years would have been probably more fiscally responsible, the fact that our casino revenue has gone from tens of thousands or tens of millions rather, to 6.5, 7 million, wouldn't even be an issue for this county today. Because at the current rates of interest that we're receiving, our investments would be more than enough to offset, our investment income would be more than enough to offset those losses in revenue. So shame on us as commissioners and council, and I've been a commissioner for going on 6 years. I'm as much to blame as anybody. But to me, we shouldn't be spending our county's future in terms of our investment income to subsidize our current operating costs. I think we should be using it to guarantee our future. And that's why I think it should automatically be reinvested back into wherever we've got it invested. In this case, I'm going to assume most of it is with Indiana or Trust Indiana.
Actually, we've spread it out a little bit more, because I can get at least 5% with a APR of higher than that on, well, actually, First Financial approached me, and that was a fight. The girl who who now is part of the, we'll call it the Public Funds Department, I don't know what they're calling it, and Huntington Bank, they both were looking for money. And this is the APY, not the APR. So when you have this much money, I just felt uncomfortable giving it all to Indiana Trust. Not that they aren't okay. None of this is going to be insured unless we really reduce the amount we have every place. But the rate is so close.
So with that said, just as an example, we currently have a cash book balance in our public claims account of $5.9 million, 5.879. We're getting 0.4% interest from Friendship State Bank. What's the average daily balance on that account?
Not that.
Well, but what is, I think that's
The
important.
average daily balance is usually in the $2 million range. And I try to keep it around there because it's nothing for the auditor's office to write a check for $1.5 million when you pave roads. I mean, it just goes that fast.
Mhm.
So you never want to short somebody, but, and we do transfer approximately, $600,000 into the payroll account at least once a month, if not more frequently. So, you don't want to drain it. This is exceptionally high, and this all happened at the end of the month. Of course, this is our first working day this month, but that is exceptionally high.
Yeah, so I think it's, and again, understanding that we've not always been in the situation we're in, but we should look at an account like that. And if our average daily balance, let's say, is 2 million, to your point, and typically we may have a claim for $1.5 million, 2 million is always going to cover it. Then when you're in a situation where you've got 5.9, we should probably be trying to invest that somewhere else to
Absolutely.
take full advantage of a 5.329% interest rate over 0.4%.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with you. This just jumped out within the last few days of the month. And so that's why it's so high. It wasn't that I didn't intend to invest it.
Sure.
And probably Trust Indiana would be my go-to place because they always have the very best rate.
So again, we're very new with this board. Again, for me, it's the first ever. But I would like to make a motion. I think it's going to take additional investigation on our part to make sure that we are able to do it. But based on my conversation with Stacy Burns, I'm of the opinion that we can create a policy that says that we automatically reinvest our investment rather than taking them to the general fund. So they never hit the general fund and they never appear to be available for
I
spending.
mean, we can use the investment for spending sometimes some major happen.
If we want to change that policy, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up a good point, because I think we're talking about an ordinance here that you would have written, and that would be something your attorney would write for you. And the ordinance could easily say that your intent, we're not going to use the interest income. And that's fine. It really wouldn't make any difference. It'll just earn more money on the interest than I don't even see a big problem with that.
I would think that would be an ordinance for this board, not for the commissioners, because
Well,
again, this board is full responsibility over the investment of public funds for the county.
that's fine. I just thinking in terms of most of the ordinances come from the commissioners. But, you know, as the finance board, actually, I came across with Vicky. Vicky's been wonderful. And most of you know, she's the previous treasurer. There is an old ordinance in here. I mean, it is old.
That somehow doesn't surprise me.
It is from January 16th to 1996. So, and it doesn't say anything more than the state tells you. And it basically, you know,
It just tells you basically the IC code.
well, it doesn't even mention IC code. That's funny. But it just basically says, you know, you're going to abide by the principles that the state has set. And you're going to invest in money markets and a couple of other things, CDs. But regardless of whose policy it is, you would want to set it up in such a way that if the county needs money, are you going to take the interest or are you going to take the principal? And that should be spelled out. So one way or the other, it's going to earn less. I mean, it doesn't make any difference if you use interest or principal. It's the same thing.
Right. So
Did you say?
I don't know that there's a, go ahead.
Did you say earlier that $400 and some thousand has already been taken from the general fund and put back into?
Yes, I reinvested more money in the month of,
Yeah, I just want to double.
in the month
I thought
of,
that's what you said, so.
yeah, I did.
Okay. So
Oh, I don't, it's not on the bottom of this sheet because I ran out of space. You will note, I know this is just an aside, but if you look at First Financials, you can look at $2 million and know we didn't earn $9,000 in interest in 1 month on 5%. And that's because they underpaid us last month. And when I drew it to their attention, they made up the difference. They had the wrong rate in there. They had the rate they're paying everybody else, which was 1.25. And so they owed us quite a bit.
So with that said, then, rather than me making a motion and us taking a vote, I'll have the county attorney draft an ordinance.
Yeah.
We'll schedule another meeting. Also, for the IC code, this board, any member of this board can request a meeting at any time. So any of the four of us have the ability to request a meeting. Obviously, we have to give 48 hours public notice and all that, just like any other meeting. But we could request a meeting at any time. The other thing that I would like to see us do is just have a standing quarterly meeting. I know probably Jerry and Randy probably don't want additional meetings, and I'm not fond of them, but I think it's something we need to do. I think it's important for people to understand what our cash position is and what our investments are doing and what we plan on doing with them.
That's why I always send you that every month, whether you can print it off or not. I would like to address one issue that's come up, and I have, in many of the emails that went around after everyone thought we didn't even have a finance committee, there was a lot of talk about the treasurer needing permission to do investments. But according to IC code, that's not the case. And I'll give you a copy of this.
We'll have to get clarification on it because I think it's clear that the finance board controls the investment of public funds. But that's my opinion.
It actually
It's an
says that
interpretation of it.
any officer that has money can invest it. And it's right here, permitted to do investments, limitations, it says. An officer designated in section 1 of this chapter may invest or
What-
reinvest funds. I'm going to give this to you, that are held by the officer and available for investment in investments commonly known as money markets, which is exactly what I've done. And that says any officer. So that means that it's not necessary to ask for permission. And
Kind of contradictory though to the other IC code.
I don't see it that way, but we're not going to argue about it.
No, I think we just need to get clarification. I mean, I'm not trying to argue with you.
Okay.
I think if you read that IC code, assuming it's an IC code, and you read the one specific to creating the, local board of finance, they're contradicting each other to some extent,
Well,
which I'm not gonna say that's not unusual in IC code.
well, yeah, and I think sometimes it's a matter of interpretation, but it really doesn't make sense if I'm the one that's aware of what the average balance is and what's usually needed to cover payroll and claims, that I would have to come and ask somebody for permission to put money in an account that's available daily in case we need it. Would you say no? If I come to you and I say, hey, we're sitting on this $2 million and it's only earning 0.40, but I can get 5%, would you say no?
Certainly I wouldn't.
There you go.
But again, I think it's why we need to have a policy.
I think that's why you have a board, that's why you have a policy. I wouldn't want to be that one person sitting there saying, hey, I moved this money.
Well, it doesn't bother
I
me
didn't- I
because
didn't go to the board.
there's,
We have a
the
board.
risk is minimal and I always know that it's available daily. That's why I'm so comfortable with the money market idea. When you get into CDs or an investment with a term, it's a little different because a treasurer may not be aware that there's a huge project that's going to cost millions of dollars.
And I'll be honest with you, Stacy Burns even said that if it's a CD, then you can't automatically reinvest. So there's obviously certain
No,
rules
that's
and
right.
guidelines
You
related to that I don't
Yeah,
know
you're
about,
not
but-
supposed to let it roll over. You are supposed to take it out and start over again. That's true.
I honestly think though, this is good like communication for everybody. Okay, I mean.
I agree.
That way everybody's open, we know what's going on, this and that, so.
This is in no way a power grab,
No,
make no mistakes
no,
about it.
absolutely not. I mean, she's still the treasurer, you're the boss,
Well,
you know. So,
Clearly doing what
I'm the
any
boss to
code says
me.
we're supposed to be doing.
but, I mean.
So what's your thought, just in general, since you're gonna write a policy and we have no clock. I noticed it was gone.
It's okay.
We're over
What-
2 minutes, but
Okay, what's gonna be the policy? This isn't even gonna affect me very much, but it will affect Yvette and she's here. When, you're allowing the interest to roll over so that it continues to earn more interest. Two questions come up. What if the interest rate falls below what you're getting on your checking account? Friendship has been paying us 0.40 on a checking account for years and not just recently. So that would be something to think about because at one time Trust Indiana paid less than Friendship.
so
And then the next question is, when the county needs money, are you just going to withdraw that interest that you allowed to accumulate? It's really not going to make any difference financially, but it's going to be how you look at it. What direction do you want her to go? Just take out the million you need or the 2 million you need? It's not going to make any difference either way, but the bookkeeping would be different.
I think again, a lot of that thought has to go in how we word this policy,
Right.
if you will, or
Right.
ordinance. But then number two, relative to your question about when the county needs money to operate. Again, I think if we're being fiscally responsible in our budget process, we won't need to drop from Peter to pay Paul. But that's my opinion.
But then again, that's what the board's for.
Well, I can't see some of this money I've invested would be health department money because all of the health department money ends up in our checking account. And the health department has received a lot of money from the state of Indiana for various purposes. And as they use that money, it may be necessary to draw some of this out just to cover what she's spending. And I know, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars she's gotten. It's a lot. So if suddenly she comes up with this major project, it's likely that she doesn't have the money in her checking account. And I can already see the handwriting on the wall. She's getting almost no budget next year. Her levy is going to be kind of sick. And instead, because they're counting on her using all this grant money they're sending her.
Yeah,
She has.
I would think if it's a major project of that magnitude, then the money's not going to be needed within 48 hours. There's no reason why the
Oh, no.
board couldn't convene
You should
and,
know.
and make
Yeah.
that decision.
Okay.
So what we're gonna leave, I guess, make sure I got my assignments right. So I gotta reach out and get an ordinance drafted.
Gail doesn't cover how much you have in each account. You have to watch that.
No, actually, if you need to withdraw money, you can take it from anywhere. The only thing is, some of the money's designated public funds or index, and some of the money's designated casino revenue. So you'd have to know what money you need. You know, if it's a casino revenue expense, so then you would naturally take it from there.
But revenue, again, casino revenue is also public funds, correct? Any
I've used-
interest.
Yeah, it's all
private
public
is
money.
Public funds,
Yeah,
right.
but I use the term loosely because
Right.
on the casino revenue, you know, we try to keep separate. And it is money that I took out of the casino revenue checking account that I invested in some places. So we just try to keep it separated.
That old ordinance, we get a copy of that, can it be, by email
Yeah.
or something?
Oh, sure, I'll do that.
If you
Yeah,
would,
no
please.
problem.
Okay.
It doesn't say much,
Well-
but I'll send it to
I
you.
do agree with you that there should be quarterly.
So I'll also have Pat put in that ordinance, quarterly meetings as well. And then we can vote on it once we get the ordinance. We can make a vote on
It
it.
goes to her question of what if you need money. If you're doing quarterly meetings, you're gonna see a shortfall, or you're gonna know of a shortfall. Decide where it's coming from.
And there's gonna be exceptions to everything, no matter what we do, there's gonna be things we can't predict. So there's gonna be impromptu meetings that have to happen. When I say impromptu, 48 hours.
I know what you meant.
But, so, I don't see any way, no matter how we draft the ordinance, we're not gonna be able to cover every possible scenario.
No, I mean, just think it kind of needs to say, as you stated, you want it reinvested, but there has to be something put in there to say, should, like Randy said, should the county need some money? The board comes together, decides where.
Suppose we have another flood,
Yes,
Okay.
an emergency or
interest.
whatever the case, there needs to be, something said, well, when that emergency comes down the pipe, we need to pull some out for good reason.
Well, hopefully we'll continue to have rainy day funds and other funds as well.
Absolutely.
But nevertheless,
Absolutely. We don't want to go backwards on.
No, absolutely not.
Uh,
We don't want to be like Rising Sun Station, so.
The rainy day fund and stuff has worked been, the team has worked very hard, the council, I believe the commissioners have worked very hard to pay off debt, put that there. So it needs to stay there.
well, the rainy day fund's small compared to the investment funds.
I understand.
Well,
But that's all the same, it's all the same effort that made them both happen, so.
Exactly.
it's an amazing thing that you all wouldn't be aware of because you don't go back as far as I do. But my first year as auditor, the general fund would, on December 31st, was overdrawn over $100,000. And for 2 years, we struggled with negative balances. And now look at it. I mean, it's incredible what's been accomplished.
Well, I think,
Well,
I agree with you
we may
completely.
not let you leave.
Mm.
We may not let you leave.
I don't know what you're gonna do with me.
Keep you somewhere.
Well, I agree with you completely, but I also, again, and then I'll open the floor for anybody else and then we'll go ahead and dismiss. Not dismiss, but,
Sure.
adjourn. Obviously, this is a great picture compared to historic values, right?
Yeah,
But as far as I'm concerned, it's only a fraction of where we need to be to guarantee the long-term viability of this county. In other words, be able to operate the way we operate today and do it off of investment income. So we still got a lot of work. We still have a lot of work to do because, Rising Sun's a great example. Last Thursday morning, when they woke up, they didn't know that their casino was going away. That afternoon, they knew it was going away. The same thing could happen to us. And shame on us if we haven't done our job, to do everything we can to make sure that our investments will secure our future. So, I'll get off the soapbox and leave it at that. Anybody else have anything?
I'm fine.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to enter to adjourn this special meeting. this
I'll
finance board
second.
meeting.
Got a motion from Randy, a second from Jerry. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
All right, we'll go straight into commissioner meeting.
That's
You're
good.
welcome.
Thank you.
Let me have to close this in the dark.
Okay.
And it's
You're going.